Hey everybody, Mohammed Sheikh here. Okay, so I've had this idea for a while on doing something a little bit differently than I normally do with the sort of content that I've been putting here on YouTube. One of the things that NLP is actually really known for, and what NLP really is that NLP is modeling brilliance. What a lot of people don't realize that what John Grinder and Richard Bandler actually created were a set of tools to model human brilliance. And so what they did is, initially from the context of therapy, they went ahead and they modeled Fritz Perls. And then they, the father of Gestalt therapy. And then they took, everything that they were able to get from him and went on and modeled Virginia Satir, who was also a family therapist. And then what they did is they went and modeled the famous, or the infamous rather, Dr. Milton Erickson, who is, if you're a hypnotist, he is, kind of like the gold standard that we're all aiming towards. So what they did is they actually modeled not just the conscious external behaviors that they're doing, the language patterns, but also as much as possible, the unconscious patterns. Perhaps what they were saying to themselves, perhaps their thoughts, where did they put their focus on? What is the inner dialogue? If there is any, what are their beliefs? What are their strategies? What are their secondary strategies when the primary strategies, don't work? So what they really created, again, was a set of tools to model human brilliance. And what I'm going to do now is I've kind of gone and started reaching out to different individuals who are an expert in a particular field. And the first conversation I actually had is with a woman named Lauren Jane, who I met at a mastermind event about a year ago now. And she is a massage therapist, and she's been in the industry for many, many years. She's excellent at what she does, that's for sure. And, when we started having that conversation around really what she likes to call how to give an amazing massage, that's how she defined it, an amazing massage. We started, it wasn't really, you'll find that in this conversation, and it's a 2-hour-long conversation, so strap on. But I promise you, it's going to be worth it if you stick around till the end. In this 2-hour conversation, we really started getting into all of the things that she's doing unconsciously. Where is she putting her focus on? Exactly what Bandler and Grinder did when modeling, Fritz Perls, Virginia Satir, and Milton Erickson. But the real interesting for me is when we started really having the conversations, I started noticing just how much overlap there actually is between giving an amazing massage and doing the sort of work that I do as a hypnotist, as a change work, as an NLP practitioner. When it comes to, showing up and being there for my clients, there's a lot of overlap there. And, there's a lot of benefit regardless of what your profession is, regardless of your interest for watching this. I am sure that you are going to take away a lot. And if you are yourself a coach or a hypnotist or an NLP practitioner, or you see clients for whatever capacity, you're going to definitely appreciate the subtleties and just how much overlap there is in what you're doing with how to give an amazing massage. Anyways, I'm going to just put her on. So this is a very informal conversation that we had. Here we go. Thanks. All right, so we are recording, and we are talking to Lauren Jane here on all about how to give an expert magical massage, right? I mean, what other words can I use to describe the sort of massage you give? A brilliant massage. How about that?
Yes.
How are you doing, Lauren?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me today.
All right. Now, my pleasure. You and I met about, what was it? Just under a year ago. It was
Almost a year
November.
ago.
Yeah, it's crazy how time flies. And I was, you had yourself, you had your crew there at the event, giving massages for this amazing event that this guy put together. There was, I think, all in all about 50 people between the two events, maybe even more than that. And you handled it like a champ. I got a massage, but I got a massage with one of your team members, which is really, really good. And, I missed out. You were busy, but, I'm sure there'll be another opportunity to actually
next
go.
time.
Yeah, next time, right? So what we're doing here is basically kind of like an interview to go really, really in depth. I have some specific questions, but I'm going to go off script a lot, right, depending on your answers. And it's really to uncover what are the things that you are doing that you don't necessarily realize you're doing consciously is just a part of who you are because you've been giving a massage for so long and so many of them that is just, so we're going to get into it. So the question, the first question is, what is the ability? And the ability is giving a massage.
An amazing massage.
Okay, I love that. Giving an amazing massage. And I am going to be taking notes as well. So my first question is, when you are giving an amazing massage, what's important to you?
I think, number one most important thing is that you're actually providing the client what they're looking for, and having clear communication with them so that they, if they come in wanting a Swedish massage or deep tissue or sports massage, that there's clear communication that they're getting what they think they're getting is one of the biggest things.
Okay. So how do you go about that? I mean, like let's say I come to you and I'm like, oh, give me a Swedish massage, but I really don't know what I'm asking for.
Yeah, so there's a lot of educating the public because a lot of people they just call it a massage. They don't know that there's different kinds.
Sure.
And most people have heard of Swedish. It's a very common one. And there's a lot of misconceptions about whether it should be hard or soft. And I was taught that Swedish is just generally very soft. And so some people get frustrated because it's just like gently rubbing the lotions on as versus like deep tissue where they think it's going to be crazy hard. But just checking in with the client, first of all, and finding out, like, do they have any injuries? Do they have something that's hurting them? That's not an injury, but just like a sore neck, sore shoulders. Trying to figure out where they're going with that. And then asking them, do they like a medium pressure or deep? And if they don't know, because a lot of times I see people, it's their first massage ever, so they just don't know. Giving them like a numerical scale to be able to decide, like 1 is the lightest, 10 is the deepest, 7's where we want to be. And then they can give me a number and I can tell from there, like, okay, 8. All right, I'll lighten up a little bit. Oh, it's a 5. We can go a little harder. Because then you have a way to communicate with each other, and just checking in with them. And there's a lot of things of like reading body language. People might clench their fists or like scrunch their brows. There's a lot of things I'm looking for during the massage to figure out if we're on the same page and the person's getting what they need.
Yeah. What else is important to you, during the massage or as you're giving? What is ultimately the most important thing for you?
I mean, definitely trust is a huge aspect of it. If the client doesn't trust you, or if you don't trust the client, that's a huge aspect. But providing someone with stress reduction, helping them feel better. You want them to walk away feeling happy, less tension, less pain. Overall, you want a good result at the end, and there's a lot of things that go into creating that.
Okay. How do you define good result?
How do I define the result? Well, usually it's when they are like smiling and they walk away like they're on cloud 9 and, oh, thank you so much. That's kind of how I could tell I've done a good job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I told you this on chat, but I once got a massage in Las Vegas in a hotel. I was really skeptical because I asked for a deep tissue and this small 65-year-old woman comes in, I kid you not. And I'm like, oh my God, I just blew. It was expensive because it's Vegas and it's a hotel. I'm like, oh, I just blew all this money. And she had me screaming.
It's usually the little ones that get you.
Yeah, like she had me screaming. And by the end of it, yeah, I was definitely on cloud 9.
Yep.
When you are giving an amazing massage, what are you evaluating?
I mean, I'm evaluating, like I said, the different body language that they're communicating with, as well as like their breathing is a huge thing. I can tell when someone's holding their breath, and that's probably because I'm going too deep. If I'm like focusing in on a knot, maybe on the back of the shoulder, a lot of times they'll hold their breath. As well as like physically, I'm feeling, because you have to learn where all the bones are, the muscles, you learn basically how everything roughly should be. And then everybody's body's different, it's going to have different sizes, proportions. but you know roughly how it should feel. So then you start to feel things like knots or areas of tension. You can tell if, something's maybe loose or tight, or, just a lot of physical aspects that I'm evaluating. And then I'm adjusting my massage based on that. Like maybe I'll focus in on an area that feels like a knot. And once you've been doing it for a while, it's so obvious what a knot feels like that it's like reading a book. Like people are always asking me, they're like, how it seems like you know exactly where where it is, and like it's like buried treasure, and you went right for it and right for the spot. I'm like, yeah, like to me, I can read your body with my hands just like a book. Like it's so clear.
Yeah. And that's what we're actually trying to do. We're trying to unpack what it is that you're doing, both consciously, unconsciously, physically, internally, that allows, an individual who's watching this to, obviously they'll need the so many years of experience that, you put into this, but there's a lot. I remember a story I like to tell is I got into archery about 5 years ago. And I've only been taking a month's worth of lessons, which is 2 hours a week. And there was 8 hours worth of actual practice and training and lessons. And there was a tournament coming up, just a club level, nothing official, but just at the club level with people that have been, shooting for years, some of them. Anyways, as it happens, one of the individuals who was going to compete in the Pan Am Games later on, I think actually the year after, just trying to remember my years now, he happened to practice at that club. And I caught him taking a water break. Usually everyone was told, stay away from him, but he seemed really approachable. He was taking a water break. So I approached him and I had like maybe 10 minutes of his time. And I asked him, maybe not even 10 minutes, but I asked him questions, not about technique, because I had that from the coaches and the practices anyways, right?
Right.
Rather, I asked him about, what's the internal dialogue? Going on, what are the things he says to himself when he gets it in a 10, what does he say to himself? When he misses, what does he say to himself? And one of the things that I got from him was he actually treats his unconscious strategy was he treats every arrow. There's 3 arrows in an end, right? And multiple ends in a game. But he treats every arrow as its own game.
Okay.
So every time he lets, loose, he loosens an arrow. That's the official terminology. You don't shoot an arrow, you loosen an arrow, or you loose an arrow. That's its own separate game. And that allows him to reset, and nothing from before carries over to the next arrow. Right, which was, again, it was unique. Anyways, long story short, I took that and I took some of his other tips into the tournament and I tied for first place.
Wow.
Right, so this stuff's crazy, right? Without the years of experience, this was little shifts of the inner dialogue and going through. And I watched him. I watched him like a hawk. And he would, before every arrow, literally, he had a little routine where he would close his eyes and let go. And you can see it's as if he's, between every arrow, it's a separate game. He was actually creating space and distance. So I did that, and I got a very good result.
I know something I do that's similar to that. Like if I'm exercising, I've been working out with a trainer a lot lately where I'm trying to balance on like a ball, this ball thing. It's very difficult, but I'm getting better at it. And if I'm not focusing, like if I'm talking to her about my day or different thoughts, then I'm not as good with my balance and doing whatever the activity is. But I'll do this centering thing where I just go like this, like I always do the hand motion and the breath.
You actually do that.
Yeah. And that's, for me, that means, okay, I'm centering. Like, I don't know where I got that from. I probably saw it in a movie or someone in massage school, but it was just like, I'm physically doing a motion, I'm taking a breath, I'm closing my eyes, and I'm deciding now I'm going to be centered. So I'm sure there's been different times where I've gone into a massage where maybe my own stressors of like my own life were going on. And I would center myself, because that's a huge thing, is you don't want to bring your own drama and your own, what's going on in your life into the massage. Like it's their time, and really setting the mood and deciding you leave your baggage at the door, and then, it'll be there when you come back. Like just let that be. And then you'll come back to it in an hour. Cause usually my massages are an hour. If it's a table massage, and just really letting it be about that person, what's going on with them, and focusing and setting that intention. So balancing myself is a huge thing that I do before the massage and before even like greeting the person. So, because everything matters from the moment you shake their hand in the waiting room or wherever you're meeting them. You have to get someone comfortable with you in like, a few seconds, like maybe 20, 30 seconds. You have to get someone, especially for a table massage, to feel comfortable getting naked and on a table in maybe a new place they've never been. I mean, that's a lot to ask of a lot of people. It's
Sure.
a lot of trust. You got to build real, real quick.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And this, by the way, is exactly the sort of stuff that I'm hoping to uncover more of. So you have what it sounds to me. There's actually a ritual that allows you to create space and distance between everything that's you,
Mm-hmm.
right, and make
Yep,
it all about the client.
definitely.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, as I was mentioning to you, a lot of folks that kind of, watch my stuff are also hypnotists and NLP practitioners themselves. And, very much we're doing the exact same thing, minus asking anyone to get naked, of course. But, we have to establish that trust within, really that first 10 seconds, right? As soon as
I'm
you,
sure. I'm
yeah.
sure with hypnotism, it would be very scary because you wouldn't want someone to hypnotize you to believe you're a chicken.
Yeah. So trust all of this stuff. Actually, I think a lot of this, what we're going to uncover is going to be directly applicable to both giving a massage, but also to the work that, myself and my colleagues do as well. This is
Definitely.
good. Yeah. All right. So, you're evaluating their breath, you're evaluating their body language, if they're clenching their fists, are they breathing, and all of that is feedback for you. And we're going to go deeper into all of these. What is your primary focus of your intention when you're giving an amazing massage?
Primary focus would be the what I'm feeling, literally with my hands or my arm, um, and always focusing on their body language, how they're responding, because
Okay.
it's just a constant. Like I'm pushing, they're reacting. I'm doing this, they're reacting, and even though it seems like nothing is happening, it seems very calm. It's very precise course corrections the entire time. That's why it's very important to be very present and not thinking about your grocery list or your to-dos. Because that's one thing, is the longer you do massage, the easier it is to get distracted in your own world. Because you could just be going like, and not paying attention and not being very present with them. But the
Hmm.
more that you're present, the better massage is going to be.
And pardon the pun, but can you go deeper on that?
um, let's see. Can you be more specific with the question?
Yeah, when you're talking about being present, what are you doing? How are you being present?
Well, like I say, leaving your issues at the door and then and focusing on them and their reactions. I mean, you watch the clock, but you try not to, is one thing, because once you've done it for a while, you get a sense for, you have like a certain amount of time you usually spend on each item. Like the back and arms is 15 minutes. Each leg is usually around 5 minutes. Flip them over at halfway through. Like there's a whole routine. And when you're first starting out, you're very aware of it. And then once you get comfortable with that, you can be even more present and you're not thinking about the clock. You're just, it's very meditative. And the more that I've learned about energy work, like
Mm.
I've been through a few Reiki training sessions, which is basically just, it's energy work. And I know when I first started out, I was like, what does that even mean? What I picture if I'm doing any sort of energy work, like maybe I know that the person is stressed out or they have a particular injury. I personally picture like sunlight coming through my head, coming down, and then like swirling around my heart and coming out my arms and through my fingertips and into them. So I'm
Mm.
picturing light going through me and into them, or picturing like a white ball of light on wherever they're injured. And I will like hold that particular spot a little bit longer. My hands literally heat up when I do that. Like someone could touch my hands and say, "Oh wow, you have hot hands," and they tingle. It's just very interesting because before this, I thought I was pretty open-minded. I'm from Oregon originally. I thought I was a hippie, but like going to massage school opened up my mind so much. I mean, I thought this stuff was crazy before, but
Yeah.
once seeing is believing, experiencing is believing, and when the patient can get off the table and say, "Whoa, did you do something different?" Like they notice whether you tell them or not.
Yeah.
That's such a big deal. I don't think that necessarily answered your question about being present, but it's like when you're meditating, you're just really in the now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we still got a lot more depth out of it. And I, as someone who's also, trained and experienced and studied and hung around with a bunch of energy workers, I know exactly what you're talking about because, um, well, simply said, seeing is believing, experiencing is believing. And, um, I don't necessarily offer energy work or energy healing as a service, as a modality, but it's like everything else. Once you've learned it, it's just kind of part of who you are and it just shows up. And I've noticed though, literally from the moment that I've taken those classes and spent time in those workshops and just practice here and there with friends or, my wife, for example, um, when I'm doing my coaching or my NLP or my hypnosis sessions are all really the same thing. I have found my clients to get into deeper states of trance, to have more uh, impactful results faster, right? They were already having impactful results, but it took me a while to get them there. But now with the energy thing just going, I can almost feel it and they just drop a lot quicker and they're able to come out and process and let go and release whatever it is they need to release a lot quicker. So it's amazing. Absolutely.
I know one way that when I first was beginning to understand it, it's something that made it easier for other people to relate to is like if you picture you're in a crowded room and someone walks in and they just seem like sunshine, they just seem like this ball of happy energy and they make you feel better.
Mm,
Or someone walks in, they're kind of like an Eeyore and they're kind of, like body language, vocal, how they sound, like, oh, everything's terrible. Like, it just changes how you feel and how you react to the situation. And so that's the easiest way for me to understand what energy is and being around someone with like good energy versus like negative energy. And not that, I mean, we all have it because we have highs and lows and good times and bad times.
sure. Yeah, it's all vibration, right? High
Yeah.
vibration, low vibration. Absolutely. Yeah. So let me ask you this question. Maybe this will allow us to kind of focus more on the being present thing. I guess when you're working, I've always wanted to ask this to a massage therapist. When you're working with a client, do you actually see them, the client, or do you just see like a leg?
Um, I am a lot of times picturing the skeletal, like if I had X-ray vision, like Superman, I'm picturing where the skeleton is and where the muscle is. And um, because I'm also an artist, it's almost like I'm drawing it in my mind and I'm figuring out how big their muscle is. Um, and then picturing, a marble sized knot, or maybe it's like an elongated area. And I'm picturing it's almost like I could draw it for you, like a sketch artist, this is what's going on. Um, and I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm very aware of the person as a whole, but I am focused on the body part at the time. But it's like you switch back and forth. It's like looking at the leg, focusing on the leg, and then, oh, what's going on up there at the head? Are they, if I can see their face, or are they clenching? So it's like constantly like focus on this, look up there, focus, like you're slipping back and forth into being focused on a particular part and then the whole.
Okay, writing this down. What can you tell me about what you're seeing, what you're focused on, what you're not focused on? Is it laser sharp? Is it soft eyes? Is it peripheral vision? Is it all of the above?
Again, it's like I'm looking at them with the Superman eyes, and I'm looking into. I don't go usually as deep as picturing the organs, but like picturing where the bones are and the muscles, and I'm not really too aware of my surroundings. But I do like to make sure that I do think the environment matters. Like if I go to someone's home and there's kids' toys everywhere and it's really messy, I think that affects your being able to focus,
Hmm.
and the energy of the room. And even if their eyes are closed and they're not looking at it, I feel like it affects the whole thing, and it affects my experience, especially if you trip over a toy. um, so I mean, it's pretty focused in, like, in a about this area, like
Okay.
almost like tunnel vision. But again, kind of going in and back to the hole, and in and back to the hole.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Just, these are things that we don't necessarily realize we're doing,
Hmm.
except that, when we begin to talk about, we start evaluating, we start going back. It's like, well, yeah, last time I gave a massage, what was it? This is the sort of stuff that starts coming out, and we can model this,
Hmm.
right? Just what, not this weekend, the weekend before, um, I was at my sister's place, and my nephew was talking about, how he's trying to learn how to ride a bike. And I said, I can have you riding a bike in like half an hour, right? And everyone's like, no, it's not possible,
Hmm.
right? I'm like, yeah, you have a bike, you don't want a bike, because that's going to be, the biggest bottleneck. Do you have a bike? So he's like, yes, I have a bike. I'm like, okay, let's go. And, the main thing that I worked with him is his vision. Had nothing to do with balance. I worked with his vision, and which was all because I know, being someone that rides a motorcycle and spending, time in classes, both, beginner but also advanced level motorcycle riding, I know it's all balance has everything to do with the vision. You'll go where you look. So it was
Hmm.
just constantly reminding him to not look right in front of his wheels, but to look as far ahead as possible. The same sort of stuff, that when we learn how to drive a car, they say look far ahead as possible, right?
Yeah.
And sure enough, half an hour later, he's riding up and down the street all by himself. And his parents are like, my sister's like, did you hypnotize it?
Oh my gosh,
I'm like, sure, why not? Whatever works.
that's awesome.
But those are the sort of things is that, once we learn what it is, what it actually is about, and then we start
Mhm.
to model that, we can do some pretty amazing things rather quickly.
I know sometimes I'll close my eyes because if I've already assessed where the body part is, making sure I'm not going to touch something I don't want to touch or something, and then I'm already there, I can close my eyes and just focus on what I'm doing. Or sometimes almost go into, I don't know, a hypnotic state, like looking at, let's say
Yeah,
there's art in front of me, just kind of staring at it, but not really looking at it. And still very much thinking and picturing, um, their muscle and where the issue is and what I'm doing to it. Like if I'm elongating the muscle or pressing in, things like that.
yeah, yeah,
And then I did chair massage for a long time, when I first starting out in like Whole Foods it's a supermarket. I
yeah,
don't know if they're everywhere, but
yeah.
and it was in a cafe part. So I would always have like a window to look out at the cars going by, and then I would have all the people in the cafe, and it would be busy, people going in and out, and kids, and they're screaming and they're moving chairs, and it was very distracting. The music was not usually spa music; it was some sort of pop, kind of music,
Sure.
and it's a whole different experience. But you kind of like tune it out, um, or you watch it from like a you just kind of like watching it go by like it's a movie, even though it's like real life. You're not going to interact with them for the most part. Like maybe I'd smile at a kid as they go by or something, but for the most part, you're still focused on the person. And I think that has a different level of attention and awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. So two things. One, for all the people that are NLP practitioners, if you're paying attention to Lauren's eyes, you'll notice she's accessing visual, right?
Oh yeah, I'm picturing it, and
Yeah,
when I talk, I usually look around a lot. I
yeah.
feel actually uncomfortable making direct eye contact with people, especially in person.
Okay.
Um, but I picture a lot of times I sometimes I'm almost like, you don't see the movie that's going on in my head, like, you know.
Well, so when we're accessing internal, if you look up left or up right, that's visual. Sideways is auditory. Down right for me, so this is my right. I don't know how it's showing up on your camera, but this is my down right. This is kinesthetic, and down left is self dialogue. Basically, I'm saying something to myself out loud. So when you pay attention to people's voice, the way their eyes move when they're speaking, you'll be able to tell, are they accessing images or are they accessing sounds? And for you, it's very much of a visual thing that's happening. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
It's
And
cool, right?
I'm sure there's other shows that do this, but like Family Guy, they do the cutaway scenes where all of a sudden they're, some funny thing that's sort of related but not related. A lot of times in my mind, that's what I'm doing is I have a cutaway scene almost playing in my head, and then I have to realize like the person I'm talking to doesn't know unless I communicate. They don't know what I'm seeing,
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But,
So, and the second thing I was going to say, and actually that cutaway scene speaks to it, is what you're describing is exactly what a hypnotic state is like, right? It's a sense of being disassociated. So, the client in front of me that is, that I'm hypnotizing, they experience a state where they're in their body, but then there's also a part of them that's sort of broken off and they're watching themselves or disassociated, right? And they're the ones that are kind of experiencing and the other ones in trance, right? And the truth is, as even the coach or the hypnotist myself, I've also disassociated, right? I'm not thinking about my dinner or my lunch, just like you described. I'm very much paying attention to what's going on in their words and everything. I'm very present at the same time. I've sort of disassociated and going past sort of the meta, like what they're actually saying on the outside. And for me, and this is everyone's going to be very unique. I know for me, it's also very. I don't see images, but I just have these senses, and so I'm often just kind of looking down, and I'm looking at them, I'm looking down, and I'm kind of going inside to sense what I'm feeling, right? Which is what I'm really picking up is what's going on with him.
Wow, that's
Right?
interesting.
Yeah, I know what I'm sure you're doing exactly the same thing. We want to uncover that, right?
Well,
So, what did you mean by that cutout scene? Like you're not watching like Family Guy. I don't think that's what you meant, or is it?
like I'm picturing the scene in Whole Foods where I'm picturing the cars go by. I can see it in my mind
So that's
exactly
the
what
cutaway. So that's the cutaway.
in this reference. Yeah.
Okay, so the disassociation is actually what's happening. So then what's front and center?
Like right now in this conversation, it's almost like this blurs out and I'm just seeing that, which actually, I don't know. So I also have multiple sclerosis and it became heightened after being diagnosed with that. If
Okay.
I'm driving and someone tries to explain to me how to get somewhere, I start picturing the paths that I have to take to get to the location. And I'm not looking at the road anymore. Like I am not focused at all on the road, and it's actually dangerous for me. It's gotten a lot better, but it was when I first had problems. So MS kind of basically your brain's just all the wires going crazy and like Christmas lights. And so when I really initially had the problem, I'd be like, if I'm driving, don't tell me to picture something. Don't let me imagine something else because then I'm not focused on actually driving.
Okay.
But I know that's a little bit of a tangent.
No, I think that's a useful tangent to have a different conversation on because there's some interesting stuff around diet, hypnosis, and MS where people have had some interesting results. But I think yes, let's park that for a separate conversation that's not going to be aired on YouTube,
Right.
or maybe it should be. It'll help some people out.
Fine with that too.
So what about when you're giving a massage? You were describing what was actually happening, the people walking by, the scene, that was kind of like a cutaway. So then where was your focus?
I think it's just still picturing, like even so with a chair massage, you have your clothes on and it's like Superman vision. I can almost paint the picture. I can have my eyes closed. I can be looking at the people around me, but no matter what, I'm seeing the scapula, which is the shoulder blade. And I'm seeing where the knot is, which is like a little marble. I'm seeing where the spine is and some people have scoliosis. So the spine's like, angled, and I'm feeling and seeing at the same time. And I guess that would be the cutaway scene in my head that I'm, regardless of what's going on around me. So sometimes something will happen, like someone falls or something, and I have to like come back into myself and then make the decision. Do I stop the massage to help someone, or do I, is this person okay over here? Do I need to pay attention to it or not? So that's the fun and interesting thing about doing massage and being very present in a very distracted situation. And I would imagine if you're hypnotizing someone in a mall, I mean, it would be probably harder, but maybe possible.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I've hypnotized someone in a Starbucks or, in like downtown Toronto and like, people just walking by. It's all about attention. Sorry,
Yeah.
just that the whole thing about if someone falls, I'm guessing you're talking about someone else and not the client, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. Well, in my world, we have to worry about the client falling because sometimes you give the command, you're going to go into a deep state of hypnosis and their brain understands for them to go completely limp and they'll just fall out of the chair, right? It's
Um,
never happened because we're trained safety, 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 safety is drilled into our head. So we're always like, and as you continue to relax your muscles, you're going to be able to stay firm and hold yourself in that chair, especially when I'm
yeah,
doing sessions over Zoom, right? So,
there's definitely with chair massage, there's a whole thing about particularly people fainting and getting dizzy after they go to get up. So there's definitely a time period when you just finish the massage, especially if it's like 20 or 30 minutes, that you
mm,
need to sit there and like come back to it. Because when you're a person receiving the massage, you go out to outer space, especially if it's a good one, and and then you come back and you're just kind of woozy and
disoriented. It's
yeah. So
definitely a lot of hypnosis happening in massage, I'm sure. Um, Let me ask you this question. When you're describing how, there's this feeling and, you're drawing the image, you're seeing the nod, you're kind of like following the skeleton, like, you're drawing this picture, this image, right? If you were to turn this into like a recipe, like step one, step two, step three, what comes first and then what comes next and then what comes next? How do you do that?
would it be for the full massage or for the specific drawing of the body?
Well, I guess we're
'Cause, like,
chunking.
I
What
have
we're
a
doing
step
is, yeah,
formula from the very beginning of, like, the first moment you see the person to the very end, like
yeah, for the actual part, let's just focus right now on the part of giving the massage. So you put your hands on them.
yeah, I mean, the very first thing like, so let's say it's a table massage, they're face down, they have the sheets over them, and I just place my hands and just kind of it's like a grounding thing that I do, kind of letting their body know, like, "I'm gonna touch you now." Like, it's kinda like asking permission. Um, you're doing a handshake, but you're doing it with, like, the body, the entire body, and just kind of sending, like, loving energy through your hands, and then I undrape just the back part, and, I begin, like, feeling I go, like, down the spine on the, it's called the erector spinae. It's the muscles, like, right along the spine. And I have kind of a typical pattern that I go, and I'm assessing where the different bones are and stuff, and then I'm starting to map out where everything is. So I'm starting to almost like 3D printers that it's like printing out a part at a time, or I think that's how MRIs work. It's like they're slowly going down layer by layer. That's what I'm kind of doing, picturing, like, creating the image in my mind of where everything is and where the problems are. I'm remembering, okay, come back to low back because there's some knots down there. Come back to the height, like, okay, there's, this is tight. So I'm like creating like notes associated with areas. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And so, correct me, would it be correct for me to say then what comes first is the touch, and through the touch, you're able to create the map?
Yeah.
Or is it you intuitively know what the map is, and then the touch actually comes second to verify what's going on inside?
Like, I know where things should be from just studying the body. I know where the spine should be, and oh, okay, this person has scoliosis, so it's totally over here instead. It's not where it should be. But then I check and make sure everything is, how it should be, and then go from there based on touching, based on feeling.
Okay. And so the first step then would be you have to have a reference of what's good.
Yes.
And then you're touching to get that feedback, which creates the map. And that's your comparison between what's actually in front of you versus the reference that you have.
Right, right. Because it's like kind of like you have the Vitruvian man of what a body should look like, but we all know that a lot of people don't look like that. They're shorter, taller, fatter, skinnier, whatever. And then also if they have any injuries or things that would, add to that's the fun thing of like, okay, this should be this way, but it's not because XYZ. And that's where you do the intake before to check and make sure you understand what you're going to run into. Like sometimes people don't tell me they're going to have a huge scar or some sort of thing like that, and then I can tell based on the type of scar or where it is what probably is, what kind of surgery they probably had. Like if they have one, let's see, it would be here for a pacemaker, and if I feel a bump there. I've only had a few people that had a pacemaker, but you can feel it. It's like a little box. I don't know, maybe they've gotten more advanced now with their technology, but and then that sets in motion a whole new set of thoughts of like, okay, they may have blood pressure issues. Do they have it under control? This person's going to need to get up slowly at the end because their blood pressure is probably going to lower. And when they go to stand up, they get dizzy and fall. There's so much goes into it.
Yeah, I know, for sure. I know. And there's a lot of stuff from experience as well.
Yeah.
Yes. And that, this reminds me, one of the things I wanted to ask that came up earlier, but I just parked the question myself, was how does one go about building the initial reference of what's good, what's healthy? I mean, what do they do for you? Do they bring in someone that is anatomically correct, or is it like a dummy and then you feel them up or something?
Like
I don't know.
School, yeah, you learn, you have to learn each and every single bone and muscle, and you look at a lot of drawings.
Okay.
And then they have the skeleton, they're usually fake nowadays, but they used to be real ones. But they're hanging from a metal bar, and it's like a physical, real skeleton. And I know one way that was really helpful for me to start visualizing it. We had a person lay down on the table, and we drew with markers where the muscles were.
Like on them?
Yeah, drew on their skin with it was dry erase marker, so it came off fairly easily.
That's kind of fun. I'd be the guy that uses a Sharpie.
Yeah,
I'd sneak a Sharpie in there.
And if someone, big muscle bodybuilder guys that have like muscles just popping out everywhere, like those are great for like, oh, I can see where the deltoid ends and where the bicep begins, and they're great examples for figuring out, because they're exaggerated. Everybody has the same muscles, they're just smaller.
Nice. All right. So I've got a 6-pack. It's just smaller.
Yes.
Yeah, love it. That's great. Okay. So we can talk about, So I'm going to ask this question again.
Okay.
Given everything, ultimately, what is the most important thing that you're looking for when you are giving a massage? Like, this is the thing that makes the difference between everyone else's massage and your signature amazing massage.
I mean, I think mainly that I'm so like in tune with what's going on and feeling, okay, here's the problem, let me solve it. And not, some people just keep going, like, I'm going to go as hard as I can to try to solve this problem. It's like, that's not always a solution. So knowing when to back off, when to go softer, when to go harder, and basing that, like, you have a feeling physically, you can feel what the person needs. And then also paying attention to their body cues. But just if you're really present and you're really paying attention to the person, that's what's going to make the difference. But if you're like looking at your phone over there, or like distracted by something, you're just thinking about your next thing that you're going to do, you're not really being there. And showing a sense of just truly caring. I think that your personality comes out in your massage, just like if you're dancing, like people that are real vibrant personalities tend to dance vibrantly. People that are shy tend to, just kind of keep it tight, and or they just don't dance at all. And so I think that your personality really comes out. And I am just naturally very empathetic, and to a fault. I just really care about people and want them to be happy and feel better. And that takes knowing the shades of gray of sometimes you have to be a little harder and sometimes you have to be softer. And it's just not a one size fits all. Like, you just really have to tailor it to the person. So I think that's the thing is I don't give everybody the same massage. It's sort of the same routine. Um, and you sense that from the moment the person, you shake their hand and you start talking to them, you get a feeling for their personality. And like I can read people very, very fast. And then it's gonna change how I massage them. What kind of personality. I can tell some people are like, no pain, no gain. And, they just want all elbows you know, and I have to sometimes educate them a little on that's not always the best answer. So no pain, no gain is not actually accurate in massage if you follow what I believe.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's absolutely beautiful. So again, two things. One, you should totally consider being a hypnotist and a coach yourself.
I don't know much about it, to be honest.
Well, I'll tell you, you're already doing 90% of the job,
Oh, well, good.
right? The 10% is just in the semantics. You'll just have to learn a few new techniques. But, one of the things that I teach, because I also have a class where I teach other therapists and, change workers and whatnot. And it's exactly what you're describing. I say, because I get a lot of people who do what I do and they'll message me and they'll be like, hey, Mohammed, I've got a client that's coming for such and such thing, or they've got this phobia. What protocol should I run? Right. And, the folks I've seen a bunch of my videos have probably heard me say this now, but dozens of times. But I always say to them, and I'm like, honestly, if you know what you're doing, the protocol doesn't matter. Any protocol will work for anything. The real magic is paying attention to
Mhm.
the human being that's sitting there in front of you. They are your protocol. And it's always as direct. I mean, I say to even my clients that what we're going to do is it's a co-creation, right? And you're talking about that constant feedback loop. In hypnosis terms, we call it a feedback loop,
Mhm.
right? And that's exactly what's going on, where you push a little and they respond, and depending on their response, well, you adjust. And you adjust, they respond to that. It's this constant, never-ending feedback loop that's always happening, correct?
Very true. And
Right?
it's always great when they are more vocal and they say, "Oh, that feels good," or some of them go like, "Ah," if you get a verbal like sound, or it can be a like,
Yeah.
um, it's so much better. Or they're like, "Oh, that's too far," because sometimes I'll do stretching, and I just say, "Please let me know." Like, and I'm always checking in. Like, is that too deep? Not to the point of annoying them, because if you check in too often, that's obnoxious as well. Um, but like, man, if they can communicate and tell you what they're feeling and that something feels good or bad, that makes it so much easier.
Sure, absolutely. But I'm sure, as you've already alluded to actually several times, is if they're not communicating with you verbally, they are communicating with you through their body language, through
Yep.
holding their breath, through the tensing, through the little movements that they make,
Or if
right?
they're talking, because a lot of them like to talk to me like I'm a therapist. And of course, I
Mm.
can't give any advice back to them. I just
Like I
listen.
said, you're doing 90% of the job.
Yeah. Yeah. So when they're talking, if they pause, I know that that's them like it might
Something just
hurt a
happened.
little bit, but it might be in a good way. So it's like paying attention to how they pause. Um, or, maybe they raise their vocal tone up or down. And I'm also paying attention to my vocal tone. I call it my spa voice.
Mm.
So I'll just say like, okay, I'm going to put the pillow underneath your knees. Okay. And now is that comfortable there? Like I have a smooth, like kind of quiet, but loud enough, because if it's someone that can't hear that well, or their heads face it and they can't really hear as well, you want to be loud enough, but calm and smooth. Like,
This is hilarious. The reason I started laughing, this is hilarious because you have your spa voice, we have our hypnotic voice.
oh, okay.
Right. And so I'll be having a conversation and then I can just slip into it's very easy for you to go ahead and close your eyes and take a deep breath. And you can actually begin to remember that the wonderful thing about hypnosis is that even talking about hypnosis allows hypnosis to even begin to happen.
I feel like it's
That is the
happening now.
most, well, truly, that is the
Oh
second
my
most
gosh.
important thing that I want you to remember now, Lauren, that even talking about hypnosis actually begins the process of hypnosis happening. And the third most important thing is that when I snap my fingers now, I want you to go ahead and forget the first important thing now.
Wait, did you never tell me the first important thing? Is that the trick? You're good. Because I just felt like that, like focused energy. I don't know if you ever thought.
You're doing the exact same thing.
Did you ever see Donnie Darko?
No, what's Donnie Darko?
It's like a independent movie, kind of art house, I guess you'd say.
I have to watch Donnie Darko now.
As Jake Gyllenhaal, it's very mind bender. Like, well, if that thing happened at the end, does that mean the beginning ever happened? Kind of thing. It's kind of dark, as its name says.
Donnie Darky? No, what is it? Donnie Darko.
Donnie Darko. It's Jake Gyllenhaal and his sister Maggie Gyllenhaal, I think. There's a part where he has this tunnel going out from him as he's like moving through the scene, and it's kind of this blurred tunnel, and that's kind of what I viewed when you were talking to me just now. It was like this like tunnel vision, like I don't know, it was very interesting, and kind of like feeling sleepy, and exactly what I would picture hypnosis would feel like. I told my boyfriend, fiance, I was nervous to do this interview because what if you hypnotize me? I'm like, he seemed really good when I saw him speak. Like, I don't know what I'm going to end up saying.
That's hilarious.
Oh,
it's actually all hypnosis. All communication has an invitation to hypnosis, and all communication actually is manipulation. It's one of the things that I've learned from my mentors. And the manipulation doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing. And I know it has a very bad sort of connotation to it, but the truth is I'm manipulating people all the time, except I'm just manipulating them to believe in themselves and, have fun a little bit and laugh a little bit more. Right?
Yeah.
It's all influence.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you want to be influenced towards a good thing?
Absolutely. And so the second thing that you spoke about, I just wanted to kind of repeat it for the benefit of yourself and, all the listeners, is we talked about, the first thing being, we really talked about just being in tune and paying attention, right? And there's so much that's happening. One of the things that we're taught, and I think you'll be interested in knowing this, is whenever someone has a shift in physiology or a shift in their body language, that's a sign for us that they've had a shift in their thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, I guess it'll be a little bit in massage because you're not asking them to process, but, I can be sitting here and I'll be watching them. They'll always be close and I'll be like, yeah. And, and have that conversation with your younger self, and let go whatever it is. I'll say whatever I need to say to them, and it's custom tailored, of course. And I'm watching and I'm paying attention, and you'll see that when this sort of shift, and I'll follow right up with that's right. And that just compounds the effect, because that I know when they had that physiological reaction in that moment, they just realized something or let go of something or shifted their thinking in something, and that's right just carries that further for them.
There's certain signs they say to look for in massage that's sort of like that if someone, I think it's if they yawn, they'll make certain like throat kind of noises, or there's different vocal cues. Like, if someone goes like sighs, they finally are letting go. Like, and a lot of people have a hard time letting go and releasing and relaxing. And they do say to look for certain cues. Even they'll say like a burp or something like that will be a sign that someone is having a positive change.
Yeah. There was an energy guy that I drove to Quebec, which is about 5-6 hour drive from here, to go hang out with for a weekend. And he's working on me, and my stomach just starts like, when your stomach's kind of like empty, just starts gurgling and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, I don't know what's going on there. Right. And he's like, oh, that's just your body, releasing.
Yep.
And the energy finding its place. Yeah. So it's kind of.
I think the word for that's a fun word. I think it's borgorigmus or something like that.
Is that like a real word or a made up word?
Yeah. I mean, as far as I know, that's what they taught me in massage school. So.
Do you know how to spell that?
I could try.
Okay, can you look it up? I'm going to make that as an action item because I want to include this. Yeah, burger. I'm just going to call it burgeritis, which is what my buddies and I, when we've eaten too much, right? Burgeritis.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so we talked about the first thing, which is paying attention and being focused. The second thing, just to reiterate, that you spoke, which absolutely applies to you and also in our work, is to show up with genuine care,
Genuine,
right?
yeah.
And yeah, that's the key word,
That's the
genuine.
keyword.
Yeah, it's got to be genuine. You genuinely got to care. You genuinely got to love. I go as far as saying, I pretend that I actually have a time machine
Mhm.
and that I got into that time machine and I went into the future and I saw my client doing or having the change that they're coming in to see me. And the reason I go through that extra step of pretending I got into a time machine is because, well, if I actually had a time machine and I saw them, now I know. And knowing is different. It's a different level than belief. Because we can believe a lot of things, but until we witness it, we don't really know. So I act as if I witnessed it. And so now I know. And then I come back and I'm showing up with that level of genuine care level and that level of like, I know you're going to get through this, right?
Mhm.
That really the client has no choice but to follow me.
Yeah. If you knew without a doubt that you were gonna be okay or, succeed in whatever it was,
Yeah.
you go towards it.
And with your client, you show up with, you have genuine care for the well-being, you have genuine love, and you genuine want and desire, and you just know that by the end of this massage they are going to walk out on cloud nine with a big smile on their face. I just triggered something. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was thinking about the fact that earlier you said something about I could have misread it, but it was something along the lines of like almost feeling the empathy of for the client and what they're going through. I'm not sure how you worded it, but
Sure.
I was going to say that's an interesting thing with massage. They talk about like transference of like if they're having a pain, it's like you can have sympathy pains. So if they have a headache, you sometimes can have a headache because you imagine what it's like to have it so much that it happens. So they sometimes talk about like creating like I think it's like a golden bubble around yourself, or just in one way or another, kind of setting a bit of a barrier and being like, okay, I'm not going to accept that. Just like mentally preparing yourself, like that's not my pain, like it needs to go away, and not like I don't want to all of a sudden walk away with pain. And it's a real thing. It's crazy. Sometimes you'll experience it. Like if the client's sad, all of a sudden you're like, why do I feel sad all of a sudden? Like it's interesting. I'm sure
Yeah.
with hypnosis that could probably happen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? And I wish more of the trainers talked about. Unfortunately, most, and just being honest here, I don't mean to be mean or talk down about anyone, but unfortunately, most of the hypnosis and the NLP trainers that I've had the pleasure of learning a lot from don't talk about this,
Hmm.
right? But the energy people too, because they get it. I remember I used to volunteer at this mental health youth line, and by the end of it, they had me coaching and sort of training the new counselors. And one of the things that I noticed, and this is interesting that you touched upon this, and I'd like to hear your opinion. One of the things that I noticed that was in their guidebook on how to handle a call was to have empathy for the caller. And I said to them, we need to take this out.
Because you have to be careful about it.
And so they asked me why. And they're like, well, if you look at the textbook definition of empathy, that is modeling the same emotion, or in your case, state, really physical as well, that they have. So if I've got a caller on the line and they're showing up with depression, now I start modeling that and now I start feeling depressed myself. And I know, from, certain other trainings that I've done, the impact that depression has on our hormones, on our physiology, on our access to our brain activity. Really, we've got now two depressed people and no solutions.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So I say we're not supposed to have empathy, right? Validation is something totally different, right? Um,
Do you
to
think
acknowledge.
sympathy would be a more accurate word or no?
I think really it's more what I'll show up with if they're having depression, they're crying. I show up with strength and love.
Mhm.
And then what ends up happening is through really this is a conversation about energy work, is that they will receive my strength and my love, and that will allow them to process whatever it is that they're crying about a lot faster and quicker. Saying it a lot simpler, I'll hold the space for them,
Right.
right?
Well, I was just thinking, especially in what you're doing, I think because it's more of almost like a coaching relationship of you're showing up as the leader, like you're going to lead them towards, away from the pain of whatever. I don't know totally what they come to you for,
Sure.
but I don't know if that would be accurate. Someone recently was talking about, you don't want to be talking to the person as though you're like having coffee with your friend and like sharing back and forth. Like you want to come from a place of leadership and lead them out of, wherever they are, out of the pain into the pleasure. Um, and so I think with talking about the empathy, it's just interesting because I've been switching away from just being a massage therapist into coaching.
Hmm.
And I noticed the first few calls, I would try to come down to their level, like you're talking about. And it's like, you have two sad people, like, oh, I know that is so hard. Like when you're trying to empathize and you're trying to be right there with them, it's actually not necessarily helpful. But like you said, how did you say, to validate
Yeah. So,
um, where
you're
they're at.
absolutely right. It's not helpful because then, if they're coming to you, they're picking up the phone and they're coming to you because they are looking for you to help them. When you say, "Oh, I know exactly the same thing happened to me," that's
Mhm.
like, well, you don't have solutions for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
You're not looking for a buddy to just like complain with. You're looking for someone to help you through it. Like you wouldn't
Correct.
want your teacher, your mentor to just be like, yeah, it sucks. Like,
So I picked this up from one of my teachers. You'll appreciate this. If someone comes out to me and says, "Yeah, the world's filled with crazy drivers. No one knows how to drive. I've been stuck in traffic. It took me forever to get here." Right?
mhm.
I'll say something like, you know, "I totally agree that you believe that to be true."
I
Right?
know that's one of those things that would infuriate me. And like, what do you mean? You mean it's not real? You think I
Well,
just think this way?
you
But
have
that's
a
like
little.
the victim mindset, right? I mean,
Yeah,
partly.
there is. You're calling them out on it a bit. You obviously, you say this once you already have rapport,
Okay.
built and established, right? But you're right. It totally is. It's a little bit of a gentle shake,
Mm.
right? And it gets them working because the presupposition there is this is not necessarily true for everyone, right?
Which
And
is
this
a
is something.
difficult thing for a lot of people to swallow.
It is, and that's most of the work that we're really doing all ourselves. Anyways, it's not. I mean, so many people, will come for anxiety or depression, and like the pivotal thing that makes all the change is them finally realizing that depression, anxiety isn't actually the bad guy. That's not their problem. That's just a symptom,
Mhm.
right? They have other stuff that's going on in their life that they're just ignoring and
Mhm.
not paying attention to that needs addressing. you
Oh, yeah.
know, Once we shift our focus and start beginning to work on that, now there's no more reason for depression and anxiety to exist,
Right.
just as an example, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Would you say that a lot of it comes down to the perspective? I mean, that's kind of what my recent thing that I'm kind of viewing everything as is it's all about like the lens that you see life through.
absolutely. Yeah, I like to teach people it's which Instagram filter do you have on?
Right?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it goes a little bit deeper than that because oftentimes most people are operating on a set of beliefs that they never actually chose to. Most people actually, we all acquire our beliefs below the age of 10. And that comes from our parents or our teachers or, like our friends and stuff like that. Before the critical faculty in our brain is really formed, we're just kind of taking everything that's is. But most people don't recognize and realize that even if they're 40, 50, 60, 70, 30, whatever years old, they're actually still operating in the world in an adult body with a belief set of being 8 years old.
Right, right.
Right? Because there's things like we have our experience most of the time. I'm 38 now, so most of the time it's 38-year-old Mohammed running the show. But I still have these schisms of my personality that are still stuck at 5 years old, 7 years old. And when something externally happens that triggers, well, they take over the command center, so to speak. It's a metaphor, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And I'm operating, and what's actually happening to me right now isn't what's actually happening. I'm filtering that through a life event that happened or a belief set that I acquired when I was 5 years old or 7 years old.
Do you think
And
that
then I
people can
behave.
get stuck in that for like a longer period of time than just, when a crisis happens? Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah, it'll generalize through,
Yeah.
right? I
Like
mean,
I can think of some examples of people that I think are like stuck at like 12 or 13, somewhere in that zone. And I'm just like, oh, I see it so clearly. Like
yeah,
you might be in your 20s, you might be in your like 60s, and that's what's going on. You're stuck at a certain age.
yeah,
Very
absolutely.
interesting.
I had a session right now with a 73-year-old gentleman. Life story is very, very interesting, but he had a very horrible, very difficult childhood, right? And there is a part of him embedded deep in his unconscious that life is supposed to be nothing more than work and suffering,
Mm.
right? And that shows up in a variety of different ways for him, but that comes right back to literally his childhood, just many instances of it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Wow.
Yeah, different conversation. Happy to have that. But getting back into massage, what I'm really loving about this is just how much overlap there really is. That I honestly think the only difference between, you know, giving a massage and doing the work that we hypnotists and coaches do is that we just don't ask the person to get naked and we
We
don't touch
hope
them as often,
not.
right?
Mhm.
We'll set anchors, which is a totally different thing, but yeah,
Interesting.
we generally don't touch.
Yeah. I
Okay.
know they do
Yeah.
talk about massage that you can have an experience where they say your issues are in your tissues. Like you'll touch a certain part, and all of a sudden they'll recall a memory that or an emotion that's a painful one. All of a sudden will release, and people will just all of a sudden start crying on the table, and they don't know why totally. But so it's just interesting the body mind connection.
I love that because it's just so relevant to really the work that I do. How do you normally handle that? Has that ever happened actually with any
I've
victims by
only had it
chance?
happen, I think, 2 times. So it's rare, but it happens enough that we're taught, like just hold space and give the person some tissues, and just kind of check in, like probably stop the massage and then just check and see if they want to start again or if they need, you to leave the room or whatever they need. So just being
Yeah,
very caring.
yeah,
And also explaining to them what's happening because a lot of them have never heard of that. So then they're like, why am I all of a sudden crying out of nowhere? And it's like, it's okay. It's totally normal. You just reassure them, this is something that happens sometimes.
yeah. That's really cool. There's a really good
Right.
book, The Body Keeps the Score, and it talks about how our physical body actually holds trauma.
Yeah. I'm sure it
Right.
does. I believe
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Okay, so we are getting through this really great. Um, you sort of already talked about this, but what do you see, hear, or feel that lets you know that you are giving an amazing massage?
Seeing them relaxing, hearing them sigh or give some sort of pleasant sound. Um, Sometimes they fall asleep. Actually, a lot of times they fall asleep. And I think if you didn't trust someone, you wouldn't probably fall asleep. If you weren't enjoying it, you'd probably be awake and like, gritting your teeth and things like that. So just
I
knowing all
enjoy
the
I enjoy it. I like to sleep.
time. Yeah. Some people get mad. They're like, oh, don't let me fall asleep because they
Uh,
want to experience the whole thing and they feel like they got cheated.
yeah, yeah, I can understand that. Okay, now we're like at the last part now, which is really going to focus on being more specific with, we're talking about massage, but what we're really talking about is your ability to be in tune with them, because
Right.
that's the difference that makes the difference. So what enables someone to be in tune? What is necessary for there to be? Or what makes it possible for someone to be in tune to the level they need to be at?
I think you need to be very aware of body language, of your surroundings. So it's an awareness, it's a fine tuning of everything. It's just ask the question again.
Yeah. So when it comes to, being in tune, right? What enables someone to be in tune? What is necessary? How about that? What is necessary, or what makes it possible for someone to be in tune?
I just keep thinking about the awareness, just being aware of someone's body language and the space around you. And I mean, it's a lot of it's who you are and what you're bringing to it. And um, going through the work yourself of becoming someone who, I mean, I don't want to use the word empathy because we talked about it, but
I mean, words are a metaphor too, so we can use empathy in a different way.
yeah, it's something along the lines of being very empathetic and very caring, and um, just being really there with them. And
So I don't I don't want to lead you or put words in your mouth, okay? But we have a concept in NLP that we call trans-identification.
okay,
And what trans-identification is, it's not empathy, it's not sympathy, it's actually as if we can leave our own body and get into their body. So it's not our projection of what's going on to them, which is really empathy and sympathy. It's always going through our own filters. It's literally as if we've come out of our model of the world, you know,
hmm,
and I've literally become you. So now I can almost, I know and I feel you. And when
yeah,
I say
I,
I
I
actually
think
mean you.
I think I do that to a fault. Like if the person comes and let's say they're like, oh my gosh, my shoulder is just hurting so much and I feel like it's dislocated, and like I start to imagine I feel that way, and maybe they start telling me all the terrible stuff that's going on in their life, they're going through a divorce or whatever's happening to them. I start to feel the sadness, and I can very easily step into someone else's shoes. um, but like I say, to a fault, like it's dangerous because then you got to make sure that you distance yourself enough to pull yourself back out of it. um, but I can be very in tune and imagine what it's like to go through what they're going through. And I've gone through a lot of different life experiences myself,
Mm,
so it's very easy for me to slip into what it's like to be in that kind of pain or sadness, and what it's like to need a massage, and need someone to give you that caring touch. Because a lot of times, it might be something physical, but sometimes it's more of an emotional stress, needing the caring touch, and just being able to be there for them like that.
okay. Yeah. Um, for what it's worth, I did a similar sort of interview. Unfortunately, I can't make that public just given the context, but it was an interview on empathy.
Hmm.
And one of the things that came up as a necessity in order to have deep empathy, and the context was around how do we model and teach people empathy so that we don't have to worry about things like food shortages and the unfairness and the inequality between this, just everything that's happening in the world, right? The
Hmm.
guys like, we can feed one of the people on the team, like we can continue to do fundraisers to feed the poor, but the real thing is this shouldn't be the poor when there's enough resources on the planet anyways, right?
Right.
So he said though one of the ingredients actually is suffering, that we ourselves need to have some suffering in our life in order to have access to empathy. That came up as far as his model came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think with that, you have to be careful. Like, if someone tells me that they've just had a death of a family member or someone they love, I'm very aware and conscious to sometimes I'll share with them something similar that I have, like my brother passed away. So I have to decide when to share that and when to, you don't want to be like one upping, like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And making it about you. Like you got to make sure it's about them. Um, so it's kind of like you'll just dive in for a second and back up just to let them know you understand. Um, but like that's the big thing, is just being able to be there for them and say that you understand, but also to lead them towards feeling better.
Yeah. And so
Yeah,
what's really coming up for me is you're also offering them a different frame and a different perspective, as you kind of touched upon earlier,
right.
right? You're acknowledging, you're meeting them where they're at, and then you're offering them a way out to use your language. Yeah.
Yeah, that, and but if they need to be in the sadness, sometimes it's assessing, like maybe they need to stay there, maybe they're in a certain stage, and letting them have their experience. Like that's one thing that they teach you, is like you don't want to force someone's experience. Like that was a good massage, right? Which actually
Mm.
would probably be like NLP language, wouldn't it? You love that, right? No.
Yeah.
Oh, here's my cat. um, you want to let them have their own experience. So you just kind of say like, "How are you feeling?" and you leave it open. You don't want to like force it. So I think that's an interesting thing that I don't know what your view would be on that with the manipulation and.
No, absolutely, right? I mean, we talk about pacing and leading all the time,
Mhm,
right? And there's many times where you just want to pace because ultimately, like good change work is really when you are letting the client, how you were talking about, taking a leadership position.
mhm,
And so it is kind of interesting is that, I mean, like, yes, I am the coach, I am the leadership, but it's very much at the same time also co-creation,
mhm,
right? And, I always say to my clients, like, you guys are going to be the ones that are doing the heavy lifting and all of that, right? My job is to kind of hold and direct and really pace the experience. And I will sometimes take them, but
mhm.
you're absolutely right. You don't want to ever take a client, whether it's a massage client, from what I'm hearing, you tell me, but in my own world, coaching clients, you never want to take someone to a place where they're not ready to be, right?
Mm,
And
that's interesting.
sometimes we will do the work and they'll have, they'll peel a peel of the onion and there'll be some deeper underlying issues. And
Mhm.
because I'm paying attention as well and I'm watching their facial language, sometimes even they'll betray themselves, right?
Okay.
So they'll say, do you think we should work on that? And
Mhm,
I'll say to them, why don't you go deeper inside and see if now is a good time? I already know the answer, but
mhm.
I'm letting them take charge and they go inside and they're like, yeah, maybe you're right. It's funny because I didn't say anything, but they'll say, yeah, maybe you're right. Let's save that for some time in the future because I'm paying attention and their body language, which by the way communicates more accurately or more truthfully than
Mhm.
their words and their face, right? Their
Yeah.
body language and their energy is showing that they're not ready to handle that. They're not ready to go there.
Well, that's like me. I have a terrible poker face. Sometimes I'm sure I'm like making a weird face, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what people must see. you know,
Yeah,
it's interesting. On that note, one thing that some people will do is some therapists will say relax, and I'll be like, like relax. And it's like, do you think that's gonna work? Like more, like if you're gonna say the word, like be like relax. Like guide them with your voice. Like, but if you're gonna like bark at them, but be harsh about it. Like that's the worst thing in my mind to make someone relax. Or they'll even like slap you, shake the muscle and like, okay, relax, relax. And it's like that's the absolute last thing I want to do now. And I'm thinking about how you must think I'm not relaxed, so then I'm tightening up even more. And it's just one of the things that bugged me from the very beginning.
yeah, we have those characters in our world too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would say something like, with my hypnotic voice, it's really interesting. Some clients find themselves can relax really quickly, and sometimes other clients will relax a little bit later into the massage. And I wonder which client are you,
That's good. I like that.
right? So either way, they're going to relax, whether right now, whether later. We got curiosity going. It's like, oh, I wonder which client am I?
Yeah. And that takes them on a little journey. Like, which
It
one do I want to
does.
go down?
Yeah, yeah. No, there's so much. I remember taking a yoga class and I went up afterwards and I asked the guy, are you trained in hypnosis? And he's like, no, man, why would you say that? Right? He's like, well, your language and your delivery, the whole class, it was all hypnotic languaging, right? You're so good. He's like, wow. So there's a lot of stuff intuitively that we just know, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so sometimes you just want to pace the experience. I get that. Let's talk about then, to finish this off, let's talk about what do you do when you're not able to be in tune, when you're not able to pay attention? What are
I'm
your
always listening.
strategies? Sure, I know you
I'm
always
a
are.
professional. No.
And when you're not.
I mean, it's really easy to slip out of it and start thinking about whatever's going on in your life. And I just try to, okay, recenter, bring myself back. Just kind of a mental uh, course correct. And sometimes, you know, the client will move all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden I'll be, oh, whoa, they just moved real fast. And then I'm like, I'm right back into like, oh no, I went somewhere else and I wasn't in the right, you know, I was shopping in my head. I wasn't here. So, just going through the mental, you know, maybe I don't do it physically, but just picturing I'm going to center myself again and come back. Just be here now. I don't know if that answers you.
Yeah, it does. We'll go a little bit deeper. Centering yourself. You don't necessarily do the hand motion, but
yeah, like if I'm actually doing the massage, I don't need to.
Yeah, exactly.
Like maybe taking a deep breath.
So one time, I don't. This is so random. It just popped into my head. One time, this is years ago. I think probably 15 years ago. I was getting a massage done, and the therapist was all sniffly, and she dropped sniffles on me.
No, that's terrible. That's the worst.
No, wait till it. And she was so cool about it that she just pretended it was oil and rubbed it all into me.
Horrifying. That is horrifying.
I was so impressed, and just how she maintained state and she just rolled with it, right? That I was like, whatever, you know, it's all good.
Well, just body fluids. Oh, that's terrible.
It's just like, it's as if like nothing at all. It was just good. And I think it probably, because I'm so trained in paying attention, anyone else would have probably missed it.
Yeah. And I'm super aware of what the person is hearing, seeing, thinking, smelling, all the senses. If there's an alarm going, if there's, you know, like you're in different settings from time to time, and you don't always have control over it. But whatever you can control, I always do try to control. Even if I'm coming to their home, like especially, oh my gosh, the last 5 minutes of massage is the most crucial, because that's what they're leaving with. Like that's the mood they're ending on. And if all of a sudden someone comes in, like all of a sudden the kids come home, like, hey mom, you know, and they will ruin it. And I'll give an extra 5 minutes. I'll be like, can you just go wait outside for a few minutes and then we'll be done? Cause it's like, I've had really bad experiences where friends come over or something all of a sudden and they're just standing there and I'm like, no. But being aware of the senses and having control over all of that, what you see, smell, hear, and feel.
That's really good. Yeah.
I like if you have squeaky shoes, that could be enough to ruin someone's massage.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm going to harken just on the last 5 minutes piece again, a direct overlap. We always talk about, you know, when you bring someone out of hypnosis and the work is done, there's a 5-minute period that we call the hypnotic hangover, right? And they're still in that state where they're very suggestible to suggestions. And it's kind of like exactly what you said, so make it or break it, right? And so we will say something like, just like hang out there, keep them, you know, sort of occupied, control that thing, because the last thing we want is someone. And, you know, one of my teachers tells this great story about this young girl that a mother brought in who had whatever issues she was having. And, you know, he did a session with her. And as soon as she was done, she felt amazing. She ran out of his office into the waiting room where his mother was and said to his mom, "Mom, he did it. Oh my God, it actually worked. He went inside my brain and pushed these magical buttons and it's all good. I feel better. Everything is different." And then the mom looks at her, because it's still within that 5-minute window, is like, "I don't know if it worked. You don't really look any differently." And with that sentence, undid everything.
No. Oh, wow.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I very much appreciate and understand controlling all of those things. You know, we talk about priming right from, you know, the scent of the room to the colors. You know, it depends again, you know, where I'm working as well. Sometimes I just use like shared office space. Sometimes I will go to the client, not often. But in Zoom, you know, I mean, I have control over my settings, but I always encourage people to wear headphones because that'll at least drown out everything else, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I usually lock the cats in the other room. I didn't do it this time, but I should have. And then like silencing my phone and closing out any other annoying browser things that might try to get my attention. Um, but yeah, and then in the context of massage, like I said, if you hear something or, if there's a dog, like making sure that the door's closed, the dog can't get in and I had a dog jump up on a table once. Like I thought it was a big dog. It wasn't a little one. I was like, that's not going to happen. And it did. Like the person's on the table, jumps. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I'm trying to think, just controlling it. And then I have a typical way that I move around the body, from like the back to the legs and flip them over and then go around again. And at the very last little bit, I have I usually try to touch each of the body parts again with the blanket over, just kind of checking in, kind of like physically, like, okay, now this is your arm, and it kind of brings them back to awareness. Cause usually they kind of go into this like meditative state, they're kind of floating, and that brings them back into their body. And then I kind of gently jostle their legs, and then I hold the bottom of their feet, and they call it grounding. And the idea is that you're bringing them back down to the ground, out from outer space down to the ground. And it just kind of physically lets them know, like, they're here, it's over. Just being very aware of like how, like I'll even the way that I say it then, like, okay, let's see, how do I say it? Like, okay, we're all done, take some time, get up slowly, like something kind of, I'm still using the spa voice. Or I'll tell them I'm going to step outside so that they know it's okay, it's safe to get up and I'm out of the room. But you don't want to just be like, it's over, okay, get up. It's all about the finesse. Yeah, transition and bringing them back into their bodies, and how you do that. That really matters.
Yeah, the elegance of it.
Yeah, I do. I think it is an elegant massage.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so we talked about when you find yourself kind of drifting off, not being present, that you will bring yourself back as soon as you become aware of it, whether it's the client, moves or something, and you just bring yourself back and you go, you may not physically do this, but you will recenter yourself, right? What happens when it's just not possible to be present? What do you do? It's just not possible. There's just too much. Give them a massage. Yeah.
It just sucks. No. I mean, people, even if you're not present, they still benefit from it. It's just not as good. I mean, you do the best that you can do. And if you can't do it, you try better for the next massage.
Is there something you say to yourself to, give yourself permission to continue giving the massage? Like, is there something that's going on internally?
If I can't kind of like be present, that
that allows you to continue going forward.
I mean, I guess I have my pattern and my protocol that I go by, and I just stick to the routine. And I guess like let's say I was having a really bad day, but I just had to do the massage anyways. You just go in and do the best that you can, and go by the pattern, and try not to let your feelings and emotions interfere with theirs. And I'm very aware of not sharing my drama with the client. You just try as hard as you can. And sometimes you have to fake it. And I don't like to be fake, but I'm kind of going for the greater good. What's more important is that they have as good an experience as possible, even if that includes me having to be a little bit fake. Because, they're not my friend. I'm not lying to, a close friend about what's going on with me. I'm working with a client, so be professional and just do the best that you can, kind of a thing.
Yeah, makes sense. Now I get that, right? There've been times where, whatever's been going on, but I have a session and I got to go through with it, of course, right? And sometimes what ends up happening is just once you start getting into the session, things just begin to click anyways, right? Yeah.
Sometimes their energy can positively affect me. I can go in grumpy and leave happy.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I mean, a lot of times they like to talk, and that'll affect it. and I limit what I say. I let them do most of the talking so that they get to guide whether or not they want to be quiet. And again, because I can't give advice, because they might get a little confused on the patient therapist relationship.
Sure. Yeah.
But one thing I know, like I was going through a breakup a long time ago, and I was really, really distraught. And I was working at a spa at that point. I just had to go through with my massages. I couldn't cancel the clients that day. And so in between sessions, I would journal and just try to get it all out. And then I'd be like, okay, I just got to leave it here. And I just visually imagined leaving it at the door or in the break room. And it's like I went into another world and I played another character. I know that's something that I'll do a lot with, the very first time I ever did an interview live on Facebook, I was so scared I forgot my own name. I was just so nervous.
Sure.
And so I had to tell myself that I am the person who is confident and is comfortable doing this. Because I'm actually like extremely shy, and I've done this now enough that it's not as hard. But if you told me, I don't know, 10 years ago that I'd be doing stuff like this, I'd be like, no, there's no way. So pretending that you are a person, putting yourself in the archetype of, and just imagining a character who is happy or comfortable with doing something, especially if, I don't know if your people are just starting out, just it's kind of the fake it till you make it, but it's like having that pretend confidence of like, what if I was the person who's done this 100 times? I've had 100 clients and I'm confident and I know just what I'm doing. Like, okay, now go be that person. Because I had a time when I hadn't ever massaged anybody professionally. Like the very first few times I did it for money, I was like, oh my gosh, someone just paid me to touch them.
Sure. Yeah.
And I realized I had to be confident because especially, I remember standing there at the chair massage at the Whole Foods and someone walked up and I thought, the very first time I was shaky, I wasn't confident. And I thought they probably aren't confident in me. And so it just felt weird. So I was like, I gotta pretend that I'm confident and get them to believe that I'm confident really, really fast. And just, I modeled what I saw the other person doing because I had another therapist next to me. And then as soon as I was able to do that, it made a big difference. And I just never stopped. And then eventually your fake confidence becomes real confidence. And so I think that kind of goes with if you're having a bad day and you got to pretend to be happy, sometimes that fake happiness becomes real happiness.
Yeah. This is great. So for everyone that's watching, if you are in the world of hypnosis or NLP, please drop a comment to let Lauren know how she's already doing hypnosis.
Okay. I did do a guided meditation recently with my fiance, and he's like, I don't know what you did different. I'm like, because I walked him through the meadows and I told him about the sun on him and the breeze and the smell of the mountain air. And he's like, what did you do differently? So maybe I accidentally hypnotized him. I don't know.
Absolutely. Right. And, so you're right. I mean, the whole, pretending and pretending you're that person. I mean, we do this stuff all the time. We're accessing these different resource states in NLP. We call that, one of the founders of NLP, Richard Bandler, he writes about a conversation he had with Dr. Milton Erickson, who, by the way, is like the model of hypnosis. We all aspire to be like Milton Erickson. He's passed away. He was a genius. The guy was a psychiatrist in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. But he was so just amazing and brilliant in his hypnosis, right? And he helped all his patients using hypnosis. But anyways, he talks about this conversation where Milton Erickson, who actually is a physician and an MD, goes up to Richard Bandler and says something like, if I can remember this, I know you're not a therapist, and that's okay. And I know that sometimes you're only pretending to be a therapist. And if you continue on to pretend that you're a therapist, your clients will pretend to get better. And as long as they're pretending to get better, they will get better. And isn't that the point?
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And, when we're talking about that, having that genuine care, that rapport, John Grinder, the other founder of NLP, who I really believe, everyone attributes this to to John Grinder, but Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, came out in the 30s or something. So I'm pretty sure John Grinder has just said it a little bit more eloquently than Dale Carnegie. But he says the secret of rapport is to genuinely pretend that the person you're speaking with is the most interesting person you've ever met, just to pretend that. And then the second step is to pretend you're no longer pretending.
I like that. That's good.
Right. And that is so applicable. You're absolutely right. There always is the first time. I remember back in, before I, got into this whole world 10 years ago, I used to work for a big company doing like inside sales and selling technology. And I would coach some of the new hires. And, I'd ask them, what's the difference between you and that guy making six figures? Well, that guy's been doing it 10 years. I'm like, okay, besides that, what really is the difference? He's like, I don't know. It's just they have more experience. It's like, okay, well, why don't you pretend that you have? You can even just say, look, call yourself a senior executive account manager, call yourself whatever you want, right?
Right.
Just show up with that. You're right. It's congruence and confidence. That's one of the key ingredients. So I'm writing that down as one of the secondary things that you're doing as a strategy, is to show up with that confidence and congruence, because very relevant to your work, very relevant in our work as well.
Right. I noticed a lot of like young 20-somethings that are doing really well in the internet marketing world. And because I'm 34, so I'm just like, how are you guys doing this? Like, what? You just barely got out of high school. You didn't go to college and you're killing it. Like, what is going on here? And I think that part of it is they just never thought to doubt themselves. Like they heard a lot of positive things saying you can do it, and they believed it, and then they did it. And I'm just like, what if you just didn't doubt yourself and didn't tell yourself this whole story about how you can't do it because you don't have experience? Like, I remember when I was younger and I thought, oh man, when I'm older and I have more experience, then I'll be somewhere.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, man, I probably didn't need to wait all that time. Like, yeah. I always thought you had to like walk up this ladder, and I'm like, no, it's like this meandering tree. It's not a ladder. It's not a clear path.
The good news is it's never too late to start. It's always easier yesterday. I'm quoting Tony Robbins now. My God, it's always easier yesterday. It's always going to be harder tomorrow, right?
Ooh, I like that. Yeah,
that's Tony Robbins, not me, right? I have a love-hate relationship with Tony.
Oh, okay. I did hear something recently where he was being really mean to this lady. I was like, I did not know this side of Tony.
Well, I attended my first and probably only Tony Robbins. I don't know. I don't want to say only. I might take something else, but I attended my actual first Tony Robbins event virtually just a couple months ago. I posted it on Facebook, right? And there's just the most interesting and funny thing for me was he always talked about how I got his start in NLP. Mm-hmm. And now he's doing something totally different. And then he goes on to teach the next thing. And it's the complete stuff that Bandler and Grinder were teaching like back in the 70s, mm-hmm. which is still NLP basically. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's basically like, I don't give a massage anymore. I do something differently. And then you're basically teaching how to give a massage 101. Yeah. Right. So great marketing and all that. But, he's an interesting guy for sure. Yeah. Okay, so what is the background feeling that keeps you engaged while you're giving an amazing massage?
Care.
Ooh, I like that. I'm going to ask the same question a different way. Okay. See if anything else comes up. When you're giving an amazing massage, what emotion is always operating in the background?
Care.
Okay. The answer is care. Love it.
And love, I'd say from a professional standpoint, acting acting with love.
Yeah. And really the last question is, I don't know if this would even apply, but what are you doing on the outside that is essential to manifesting, giving an amazing massage? You're obviously giving a massage, mm-hmm. and you talked about what. Just run me through. Maybe even if you're repeating yourself.
What do you mean by outside?
External behavior. So nothing to do with inside. Everything that's physical outside.
Well, from the moment that I greet them, I shake their hand, smile, try to give a warm, confident, a presence that's like a doctor, but with really good bedside manner. So, you know, you want to make sure that you're not coming across creepy or uh, uneasy, any sort of negative feelings. Um, you don't want to be overly like, hey, want a massage? You know, like it's being very aware of the presence you come to it.
Yeah.
Because you really have to convince them within seconds to trust you. And they tell you, because you have to ask them, do you have any medical things? Do you have, you know, are you pregnant? And like all these different questions that people tell me within seconds about, you know, if they've had a stroke or an injury or, you know, all these things. So I'm smiling, you know, I'm making sure that I have a professional clothing and attire, not being too sexual with it, making sure that, you know, I don't have heavy perfumes. So how I look, how I come across, how, you know, if it's my office, how does that look? Does it look professional? Maybe you want to have something up. If you're trying to portray that you're more of a medical person, you might want to have some medical posters or books.
What do you portray?
What's that?
What do you portray?
When I had my own spa, I had a lot of candles and I called it ambiance spa. So it was all about the ambiance. I didn't want it to be like romantic, but very relaxing and comfortable and things like that. I wasn't going for a super medical approach, but I tried to carry that with my presence, I guess. If that makes sense. And in the office, we did have like in the waiting room, there was medical magazines about massage and, you know, things to let you know you're in a safe place. That's not anything sketchy going on.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, externally and you know, body gestures, just how you hold yourself, the fact that like some people are super comfortable undressing in front of you and you just, no matter how comfortable they are with it, you always, you know, say, I'm going to wait out here and be like, oh no, it's fine. It's like, you know, I don't care if you're 90 years old or, you know, unless you actually need help onto the table or something.
Sure.
Just always holding yourself with a certain professional mannerism it's very externally shown.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess, you know, the one difference though, also between, you know, our two professions is when we see someone in a session, we've actually already had prior conversations, like a consult, you know, inquiries, stuff like that. But I guess in your, especially if you're working, I remember getting massages too. Sometimes the actual very first words exchanged is right then and there, just minutes before the massage. So that's the very first time you meet.
Yeah. So I would, if I have a waiting room, I'd say, hi, I'm Lauren, you know, I'll take you back. And then I'd wait till you're in the room where they can have the privacy to explain whatever, you know, issues they have going on, ask them those questions while you're standing still closed, feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've established the rapport. And then you let them know, because a lot of people don't know how much to undress, you know, let them know what, you know, like you can undress to your level of comfort. So most people go down to, you know, if it's a guy, I'd say to their boxers. So they have an example, because a lot of them, they get stuck there thinking about, I got to undress. Wait, how much do I undress? Which way do I lay? Like, how do I lay on this table? You know, if they've never seen it, they don't know how to lay on it, things like that. So just quickly guiding them through and then making them feel like this is the totally most normal thing in the world. I'm going to close the door and I'll come back, you know, let me know when you're ready. So, and that's a key thing of like that you're talking to them about the intake questions, their medical history, what's going on with them while they're standing and clothed. And then once you've left the room, you come back and it's like a new energy. And then they're laying down. And then from there, it could be quiet pretty much the whole time, except for to check in with them.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes it's a fun conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
And then the payment, I always like to keep that outside the room. I tried to always handle that as smoothly as possible. And you know, it's like, cause it is a transactional thing. And I know the first few times I was uncomfortable with it, but it's all about how you bring yourself to it. I don't know if your people would be handling the payment situation or not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an office like that where I have like a receptionist or anything, so I handle my own payment. I know a lot of people follow the whole pay up front model,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which for
Is
me, in
tipping a
my
thing
style,
there?
no, tipping's not a thing for us.
Okay.
Um, but I'll just usually I have already made the instructions, given them the instructions of how payment works, so
Okay.
they know they already have that.
And that's a big thing, is setting expectations up front is so
Yeah.
like crucial. Like that makes everything so much better in everything in life.
Yeah. Well, I know exactly. And it's all the priming. I mean, we talk about the hypnosis is already start from the very first time they say hello on the telephone,
Mm.
right? So you've already started with the priming, the expectations, say, well, before they even make it to your office or make it to the Zoom session, there's already, and if they get into their office, whatever you can, because I've never had like my own office. I've always used like co-working spaces and just rented out billboards, meeting, what do they call meeting rooms? Why
Mm-hmm.
did I call it a billboard? What was I thinking? Briefing rooms. That's it.
Boardroom.
Boardrooms. That's it. There was a B. um, but individuals that have their own offices, like they'll go right down to like the sort of carpet they have, if they got wood, what colors, what paintings, like exactly all the stuff that you're describing, right?
Yeah.
And it's all about setting the ambiance and setting the expectations.
Yeah. I mean, if you're in a room that looks kind of creepy, like the first thing they're going to be looking at, what's the room look like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? Like, why am I in a, like, I don't know, somewhere that you wouldn't normally be doing that kind of a session in? Like,
Yeah,
you want to make sure it all is congruent with the image you're trying to portray and the feeling you want them to have. So
absolutely.
I a lot of times picture what the client experience is, from beginning to end. How are they going to feel walking in here and things like that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. Um, I was just having an internal dialogue. I think it would be cool. You sort of alluded to it, that you already have, because, oh, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Lauren here is working on a course that she's putting together, which is actually about teaching, all of us at home how to give a massage to, I guess, our partner or our family members, or just basically give a massage, especially with COVID. It's not necessarily, no
Ideal.
one's running. Yeah, ideal is the good word, because I mean, everyone has a different opinion, right? So, and I respect that. Um, to go into a spa or to get some treatment done. Anyway, she's building an amazing course, and she talked about, you alluded to the fact that you actually have like a step-by-step protocol,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think it would be interesting to kind of exchange notes, and I share with you offline, not right now, but
Mm-hmm.
offline, the sort of protocol that we're given as hypnotists, because part of that is to demystify. You're kind of demystifying the massage experience by letting them know how much to undress, how to lie down, all of that sort of stuff. And we're saying stuff like, hey, just so you know, you can't get stuck in trance. It's not like you lose control. You will never say anything that you wouldn't normally say, just to demystify it for them, even if they're not asking, right? Like a 30-second spiel, right? That's one
I
of the
would want to
things.
know those things.
Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
never been told those things, so it's good to know.
Yeah, exactly, right? I usually say to people, hypnosis is not like anything they see in movies, because, well, that's just a movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like to tell people that all hypnosis actually is self-hypnosis. Context says a lot. And so for the work that we're doing, really is just giving you access to go deeper inside, because we're
Mm-hmm.
really good at lying to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So to have the ability to go deeper inside and get to what's really going on is really amazing, and you're the one in control. Something
definitely.
like that. Yeah. So last question is, do you have any questions for me?
Oh, so many. I'm very interested to learn more about hypnosis now.
Okay. Yes, and we will. Maybe I'll turn you on to some podcasts, but in the context of this conversation of massage or anything at all.
I would say, do you have any questions? But I'm impressed.
Well, all I've been doing is asking
I
questions.
know. Well, I guess I would ask maybe what your experience is with massage. Like, how do you
Yeah.
feel about it?
Okay. I love getting massages,
Mhm.
right? Even at times when I know I probably should go for some physio,
Mm-hmm.
I'll still opt for the massage,
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh, for me, it very much is like what I'm evaluating, what I'm looking for. Um, I'm very much looking for the energy transfer as well. So the person doesn't need to be a trained Reiki person or an energy person or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. That's actually not required. I mean, it's great if they have it,
Mm-hmm.
but when they are a genuine human being
Mm-hmm.
and they're already doing all the things that you're talking about, they show up with a genuine care,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is, you're right. I'm glad you said it, but for me, like that's exactly, and it shows up even in my profession too, is that that's what makes the difference,
Yeah.
right? And
That's interesting because
yeah,
when I pick who I'm going to have, especially when I was in Florida, where I know all the massage therapists there, um, or a good number of them, and I would think, who do I want to come and do a massage for me? I'd think about their personality and their essence,
yeah,
and I would pick it more based on that than anything else.
yeah,
Um, because that just comes across and it affects the whole thing. It's how your essence and how you come across that's going to be the whole experience.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's interesting that you pick it the same way.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if that has to do with because I'm in the work as well. It's literally you and I are doing the exact same thing, just from a different angle, but it's the exact same work. Um, if that's it, or if it's just like I know technique is important, but I kind of say that, for me, technique is like that's where you begin. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would hope and assume that if you've opened up a play, like it's same thing with my colleagues. I
Yeah.
would hope and assume that if you're starting to see clients, you've already gotten, a level of technique, and of course, the more years you're going to master that further.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more into how they show up. Do they have genuine care? Do they actually show up? And there's been times where, um, I think I've been fortunate. I've always been able to find. I will try out different therapists,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, if I don't get that sort of click,
Yeah.
right? Even if their technique is good, if I don't get that sort of click, I'll never book a second massage.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind
And
of
that's
where.
why, a newer therapist can be good because it can come down to just kind of who they are and how they present themselves in their essence. And they'll learn the tools as they go along. You'll
Yeah,
put more tools in your toolbox, but it's
that therapist who massaged her droppings or bodily fluids into me, I went to her many times afterwards.
it wasn't enough to say
No, because again, like she was just so cool about
it
it.
happens. Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
mistakes
yeah, whatever, right? It happens, and
happen.
what's it called? And there's a shower right there too, so no big deal. Um, but you know, it was just the energy and the presence and the genuine care and all of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's why I saw some clients for years, but, I guess, my question would be for you, like, how often do you go to get massages or have
Oh, I
someone?
haven't been since COVID. There was a time that I was going every 4 or 5 months, right? I would like to
Oh,
go
no.
often. I
You
know you
want
should
more
go
than
like
that.
once a month. I know, but you know what I got addicted to? I
Uh-huh.
got addicted to float tanks.
Oh, I wanna do one of those. I haven't done it
Yeah.
yet.
So I was doing float tanks quite regularly. I was
Mhm.
going once a month
Okay, well, that's
for a
good.
float tank.
Self-care is so important, even if it's, there's different ways to achieve the same thing.
Yeah.
They all have their different. I think I like massage because there's a certain thing, another human, touching you and giving you their care and energy.
Yeah.
I'm sure the float take is great. I love, when you can't go out and get a massage, having a personal, like I have a shawl massager thing that just, I put it on, I can lower it down my back. And, for people that can't afford it, like if you can buy one of those, then it's the price of one massage for hundreds of them,
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I
but
actually have the
it's
same
still not
thing.
the same as
It's
a
got
human.
two loops. It's got two loops.
Yeah. It's like literally like a shawl and it has
Yeah.
loops and
Yeah.
you have,
Yeah. I have the exact same thing. I picked it up from Costco.
yeah, I got mine from like Sharper Image at the mall, kind of a thing. So
Yeah.
I always suggest that, especially the people that are just stressed out a lot, high tension jobs, or people who are taking care of other people a lot, like any sort of service industry job where your body is just being abused, you gotta do self-care. Um, and then if that's just getting one of those, that's great. That's good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But you're right. I mean, the human touch, it is, it's totally different. Yeah. And, getting back to that 73-year-old, one of the things that he wrote in the initial intake was no human touch for 32 years.
Oh,
I know it's right. But,
wow.
yeah,
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think human touch is so important on just a general level, as well as, it's like one of the five love languages. And some people really just don't like being touched, but I mean, I think that probably has to stem with some other psychological issues that have come on in their life.
Yeah, that's that is interesting because okay, um, sort of a tangent, but sort of thing. Like, I've had some interesting conversations about like, oh, you go for a massage, doesn't that get weird? Right?
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, no, never. Why?
Yeah.
Why
Why do
would
you
it
make it
like,
weird?
yeah, why would it get weird, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it just kind of goes to show what must be going on,
Right.
in their minds. And there are so many,
Perspective.
and that's all it is just beliefs, right? That's what they're acting upon, right?
Right.
Um, I
Well,
come
like I
from,
know some guys are uncomfortable getting massage from another guy, and it's like, well, it's all about the perspective you bring to it. I mean, a
sure.
lot of like big NFL players, like they have a guy in the locker room stretching them and stuff after they play. Like that's just what you do,
Yeah,
um, and it's just all about the mindset you bring to it. I mean,
absolutely.
because it's not a sexual thing, and I know that sometimes husbands and wives they'll have issues with the other person going to get a massage, and it's like, I mean, as long as you're seeing a professional who's truly doing what they're supposed to be doing, it's not about that. Like it's totally removed, and that's actually in my course. I want to gear it towards partners, spouses, but that's one of the key things is to remove the sexuality from it because you can then fully relax and know that you're not thinking about, oh, are they making a move on me? Should I make a move back? Like just remove that completely from the situation and allow yourself to truly relax because otherwise you're kind of like you're staying in a more conscious state.
Yeah.
Like as you're receiving the massage, you're not able to truly relax.
Yeah, you're literally read my mind, like literally. And I'm so glad you have that because otherwise I was going to say, make sure you put something like that in there because, like my wife and I, we give each other massages and it's an actual massage
Yeah.
and that's it.
And
Right.
that's about setting the expectations. And
Yeah.
if you understand, especially for me, because I use, you always call it a table when you use, massage table, it's not a bed.
Yeah.
And not everybody has that at home, but that's one of the ways.
I want to buy one.
Yeah. And
I
you can get them
totally
for like
do.
$100, $200, like not
Yeah.
too much, get used one off Craigslist. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if they have that where you are. I think you're in Canada, right?
We got Craigslist. We use Kijiji more. I don't know if you have the
I haven't
Kijiji.
heard of that one. But I'm just saying, like, it doesn't have to cost a lot. But the
Yeah.
good thing about that is it kind of sets this expectation of like, this is just about taking care of someone and loving them in a non-sexual way. And then, if you want to have something later, but it just having it nicely separated. I remember they taught us that in school and I thought, what's it matter if it's your boyfriend or husband or whatever? But I really think it means a lot to the experience.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's all about, we're getting back to setting the scene, setting the ambience, the expectation, the congruency, and all of that.
Mhm.
Right.
And I've massaged friends, family members, just all sorts of people, like, people that are the leaders and the mastermind things. And, it doesn't have to be weird if you don't make it weird.
I think that actually sets it the best, right? I remember someone asked me, you know, a similar question to that, and it's just out of context. I'm not going to actually repeat the context, but my answer was, it's only weird if you make it weird.
Yeah.
Right? So it's literally exactly what you said. Okay. I think this is good. So if anyone has any questions, I'm just going to literally add an introduction, by the way, and upload this. Right.
Okay.
I'm not going to bother editing. I think this is good. For those of people that actually stuck around, like we've been chatting for about 2 hours now. Congratulations to you. Hopefully there was benefit, or you just like the sound of my voice and
Did they
Lauren's
get a free
voice.
t-shirt or something?
No, there's no free. Yeah, I'm not that big yet. Once I get to the level, yeah,
Stuck around. Free t-shirt for you.
check your mailbox. Yeah, I'm not Jason Lynette or Chris Thompson. Right. You don't know who those guys are, but yeah, they give away a lot of free stuff.
Okay.
All right. I think this is it. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank
I'll
you.
include all your contact information. And do you have an idea when this course, or just like, where is it? Like, do we have a
I'll
launch
say in the
date?
next couple weeks.
Oh,
We'll
yeah?
have it ready.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Awesome. Perfect.
Yeah.
So look out for that. All right, guys. Take care. Bye. Lauren, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. That was really supposed to be only an hour, but we just kept on talking. Anyways, if you have any questions for myself or for Lauren, just, whether on YouTube or Facebook, just drop them down. I'll do my best to make sure I tag her. If those questions are for her, if they're for me, I'll answer as soon as I can. And if you want to reach out, if you're interested, she's putting on an amazing course. It is on how to actually give a massage at home. So if that's something that would be interest, head on over. I don't make anything out of this. I just wanted to have this conversation and give you guys some value here. Anyways, look forward to the next one of these in this series of, I still don't have a name for it, but I guess let's just call it Modeling Brilliance for now. Okay, take care. Bye, guys.